Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and welcome to a quick discussion video about Red Dead Redemption 2's newest gameplay trailer. Now, this was a longer trailer than I actually thought it was going to be, but we're going to watch through it, and we're going to discuss some of the different elements that I saw, and some of the side things. You guys know, as always, this is going to be not only technical, but a lot about how the gameplay may end up maturing as we move forward into this sequel. Let's get to it. One of the first things I noticed after this initial starting where he's broken out of jail, which I actually really like the effects used here, is when you see the horses riding through the town, you start to see a lot more of an elegant and just a more organic NPC lifestyle going on. You see people carrying 2x4s, but one of the things you can notice instantly is the animation there on both the horses, but also this dog in the background. There's also just a little bit of dust particles coming up behind that dog. It looks a lot better than the original. And you also notice that hip sway that a dog has. It's that attention to the fidelity of movement, I think, that we're going to notice throughout this trailer. Also, in almost every scene, there is a lot of cloth movement and movement on the different buildings around. I really do dig that. It gives the world a more lived-in, more realistic feeling. So they discuss the area itself, and you can certainly see, now we know that this map, they said, isn't necessarily much larger than the first game, but looking back at the draw distance for a second. Also, I just got to mention, you also notice that all of the bird life seems to move much more realistically than the first game. Here you can see, too, an increase in that ability to make sure that the LOD is pushed out. You really don't see any kind of unique graphical errors going on in the far distance. And then, of course, we get to this fight scene, and I have to say, this is really impressive. That collision detection that they have between the characters is rock solid. It absolutely looks like they're touching one another. This is something that we see in a lot of games, especially open world games, where things just don't feel dialed in. GTA 5 did a pretty good job of this, but it really is pushed up to that next level here in this fight scene. Also, my hat's off to them. They did an excellent job with the NPCs here. There's almost no repeating, and when there is the repeat of a shirt or some kind of pants or something like that between those NPCs, they actually have obviously variable different clothing that they can wear, and you see the different hats and just the different overall look to everybody. They did a really good job making that appear more dynamic. Of course, what would this trailer be without discussion about the deformable snow? And that's great and everything, and it gives you these ideas of what could you do in the title. You know, could you end up chasing after people by just following their trails in the snow? And could that be more of an open world element versus what we've seen in a lot of games where that's ever happened and it's more of a canned mission? But one of the things that you really notice here is that soft lighting, and that lighting that takes into account the two lanterns and how they bounce off of the horses and end up throwing that shadow to the right. Graphically, it's just highly impressive. Now, when it comes to the new Deadeye system that they said, we don't know much about it, but it does seem to be more fluid overall. You can definitely see that in the multiple times they show gameplay here, where it does look like, even with a controller, it's going to be a little bit less finicky than number one. Also, you gotta absolutely just take your hat off and say, man, it is so cool that they figured out that finger slide over the trigger guard kind of moment in the animation. Very well done. I was surprised to see this, if this is indeed the console version they're showing, which I'm assuming it is. There really isn't a lack of detail behind or to the right or left of these characters during these scenes. That's something that you see a lot of times, especially on console titles, where they need to take care of some of that overdraw. So on the right and left or behind a character, you'll start to see the detail actually going away, almost like a cone of vision. That really does not happen here. Very well done. Even the horse there in the background eating. Patented chest hair engine alert. Now, this next spot up, one of the things they discuss is the wildlife engine, how everything runs and what the main character can do, and what obviously multiple characters can do who can play these. You can take these different animals, you can kill them, you can end up putting them on the back of your horse and selling them at different places. Also, I love the fact that they really brought in the shallow water environments to indicate that, you know, you will be able to actually go in the water, unlike the original game where most of the time you ended up dying. This is also where they broke down the different locations and started talking about them, which to me is going to be interesting because you look at the swamps, you see the cities, that kind of stuff. It'll definitely be one of those titles where I'm going to want to see how that change between the rural and the urban happens and if they really feel or look realistic. I do have to say that I love the fact that when that fog rolls in, you can start to see particulate in the air easier, which is actually the way it works in real life. Very cool. Then it started breaking down the posse moments, and these were actually very cool. It showed the different parts in which you'll be able to take advantage of having that camp and where the camp is. This is something that we just heard about a couple days ago as well, where they said depending on the camp, you might have different levels of supplies, might have different situations going on. You might pick a bad place for the camp. Here they said this is where you're going to be playing the poker, of course. You can also do that in towns, but you're going to be able to gather together. It said tell stories and all of these different things that you could do. Not quite 100% sure if that'll be different characters you bring in. Like, do you bring in somebody who's a musician to play the guitar, that kind of stuff. You really do grow your own baby town here. Also, they do such a great job making worlds feel alive because of all the character movement that's going on around you. I like that. In almost any scene here where a character's walking, there is a great deal of movement, just overall feeling of activity within the game world. God rays. This actually just looks really impressive. Once again, strangely enough, the one thing I noticed is the birds flew correctly. They actually flew somewhat accurately, which was something that you don't see a lot. Of course, pistol whipping people. Now, they did say you can call out a greeting to different people on the road. There's a social element here that really did not exist as deeply as it did in the first game. I think we can be assured it won't take over the entire title, but you definitely do seem to notice that that's something that they wanted to show. Again, they did say they were going to show actual missions on the later trailer. They did say that this was all captured on a stock console system. I think that when you look around, that's pretty much proven. You can certainly see that there's some low resource textures here and there, but it's nothing actually terrible, especially when you look at an open world game and everything it's trying to do. Also, the textures on the clothing, this is something that they've always rocked, but they've really turned it up to 11 in this trailer or in the game itself. Even the sweat marks, the way the clothing just looks, it's certainly close to a Naughty Dog style versus some of the other open world games we've seen. Now, this is a part that I'd like to know what you guys think about this. As they show him taking out these enemies, they start to discuss the different horse dynamics and the fact, especially in-game, they were showing that the horse can actually bolt. It can actually rear up depending on your attitude and your familiarity with it. The only problem I have is this. I don't think any of us want a major mission to be ruined because a horse freaked out. So I'm curious to see how all this comes together. Is it gamified? Is it more just story-based? How often will these things freak out on me? Because once again, I don't want a main quest ruined just because the horse tweaks out. Now, I gotta show this a couple times, because right away there's three things. The first is the fact that the debris system, the particulate system, is running even on a far off enemy like that. You can see multiple places where those particle effects are working. But also that interaction, once again, the collision detection I discussed, with the horse flipping that dude when he ends up getting shot and dies and falls off that horse. Fantastic animation work, excellent collision detection, and really impressive when you look at how far away those particulate systems are actually running, especially on a console. Of course, now after it shows this emaciated horse you end up having, they also show different wildlife systems. You can see an alligator that attacks them. You can see different wildlife systems working in the background. This is something that we did see in GTA 5 a little bit, and it certainly seems like they've gone and cultivated that a little bit. I mean, this is such a far cry from, let's say, Far Cry 5, if you go and look at their wilderness systems. Of course, many people will remember this store from one of the initial images we saw a long time ago. Just fantastic work on making everything look layered and busy and interesting to the eye. To me, that is the one thing that I'm really looking forward to, is to see how much of this is gamified, how much of it is just open world and you can do whatever you want and the game sort of reacts to that. And then where those stops are, where those gameplay stops are, where is it that you can't push too far because that would break the game or that would make a problem come up in one of the main missions? You know, can you kill everybody in the game and just keep running off, coming back and killing? Now, this is one of the things they say they're going to do, is cover the missions, but you can see a fishing game. Every game has to have a fishing game, right? One thing you notice right here is, well, the female fighter, but you'll also know that the rain obviously has some kind of distance marker, because I thought, oh, it just means that the rain is starting right when they enter it. But if you actually notice, it looks like it's an envelope around the character for the graphical drawing. But other than that, really, honestly, a fantastic work overall. It looks incredibly enjoyable. It'll be, of course, different once we get our hands on it, but I have to say that this raised my interest level a good amount. One of those reasons is because it does feel lived in. This is something I talk about during the Walking the Walk videos. I want to really feel like everything around me is occurring not only because of me, but also without me, that different jobs are occurring without me, that there's different NPCs living their lives without me. This is something that, let's say, We Happy Few did not do the greatest job of, which I reviewed earlier today. But this game really does look like they're making an effort to make you feel like it's a living, breathing world, but hopefully one that you can't break in absence of the main story. That's one of the things that I'm going to definitely be watching out for. They didn't cover anything about microtransactions or multiplayer or anything like that. I'm sure we'll see that later. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys like this. I'd like to know what you guys thought of the trailer. If you're interested, not interested, what have you. Give it a thumbs up if you liked the video, thumbs down if you didn't. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.